Hello everybody, this is JackB1024 and this is episode 8 of our dynamic Factorio. Now last episode we started making our brain, we made our state machine, and we set up a very simple circuit to tell us when we're in state 0, 1, 2, 3, and also made a timer for state 3 that would reset it back to state 1. We also looked towards our main bus and a way to optimize it flowing materials on the east and west lines. I said I would look further into a better way to set up the control for flowing at east and west, because currently we're using, here we go, we're using a check to see if it's equal to -2 on these 3 belts. I haven't thought up a better way to do that yet. I'll think about it more at the end of this episode. Also, we finished researching railway, automated rail transport, and rail signals. I'm going to start researching stack inserters, mainly so I can get the inserter capacity 1 bonus and 2 bonus. This one's important because it gives non-stack inserters a bonus of +1, which will really help in a lot of our circuits that we have going on at the moment. We have normal stack inserters and they're only able to pick up 1 item at a time, and so this will let them pick up 2 items. So we'll get started on that. And with that set up, let's get started on today's circuit. So for today, actually, one thing I'm going to change about yesterday's circuit, wait. Okay, I already changed it. So we got rid of the constant combinator over here that was sending out a signal 0 on the green line. And instead I've moved it, what I'll do is I'll move it here. There, that should work fine. So if you remember, this constant combinator sets a signal of S is -3, so that this decider combinator sends out all its inputs on when S is 3 on this green line, because -3 + 3 is 0. Adding a signal 0 of 1 means that when S is 3, this is also going to send out that 0 is 1 signal. The main reason I did that was just because I don't want this green line to be polluted with a lot of signals that we don't need for every situation. So obviously every single state we need to know what state it is in, but it's not necessary that every single state we need to have a 0 signal of 1. So this time we're going to deal with our first state, or our 0th state, depending on if you want to count from 1 or 0. And that's a state where we want to read from all of our crafting setups. We want to read from each of these. So this state is going to have 2 different circuits that we're going to look at today, and two main sections of its circuit. It's going to have a memory part, which is basically going to store just what our input is from each of our circuits, each of our banks. So we need a memory part to remember what each bank has, and we need a sort of timer, a counter, which will count up from 0 to however many banks we have, so that we can say, hey bank 0, tell us what you got, hey bank 1, tell us what you got, hey bank 2, tell us what you got, etc. So we'll start with looking at our memory circuit. So this should be enough room for our memory circuit. Now there's 2 easy ways to make memory circuits, or memory cells, in Factorio. Thank you, autosave. The first one is with a arithmetic combinator, each thing +0 output each thing, with the output wired into the input. The second one is with a decider combinator, and for this one we'll set a reset signal, so we'll set signal red for reset. If red is 0, then we want to keep our input. If red is not 0, we want to reset it. So when red's 0, we output everything and what we're getting on the input count. I'll quickly just set up, actually, what do you got? That. Here we go. Boom. We'll just copy one of these 1 tick pulse generators. Here they come. Default variable speed is so slow. Okay, and we'll just connect both these to the red output, to the red inputs of these two combinators. So this just means that we can send a single tick pulse to both of these, which will be useful because these inputs are connected to the outputs. Every single tick, it will count this extra red line and add it to what it has. No, we don't want S as 1. We'll just send it a bunch of random signals. So, you know, it doesn't really matter what we're sending it. We just want to know that we can send it, you know, a couple of signals. Okay, done. As you can see, they both have the exact signals we've got over here on the input side. Now, how they differ is how you reset them. So to reset the bottom one, yep. So now we're only dealing with the bottom one. To reset it, let's say we also wanted to add a fish signal. We'll add a signal to it first, and then we'll show how you reset it. So that you can just send another signal, and it'll just get added. You know, if you send it again, it'll get added again. So it's now 1000, and now it'll be 1500, and so on. Now to reset it, if you remember, we're checking if the red signal is 0. So if we send a red signal of anything but 0, it's been reset. And so now it's outputting nothing. Now if we connect to the top one, we do similar sort of setup. You can see, there we go, it's added the fish signal, 531. About 1000, about 1500. Now this time let's add a red signal of 1. And I'll turn this off just so I can, there we go. So we turn it on, and you'll see it's just added the red signal because it's just adding everything it gets on its input to its output. So the way we actually have to reset this one is you need to pass in what it has already on its input side multiplied by -1. So to do that, we'll actually set up, I think, another pulse generator. We'll want this. Let me just think. On the pulse, we want to output that. But we also want to output that. This is probably not going to be the simplest way to reset it. It's just the quickest way to set this up. Take that there, take that there, that there. Connect those outputs and connect it to there. And I'll just disconnect that for the moment just so I can check that this is working as I expect it to. So what we're going to do, so for this line, this is just a pulse generator, same as this line down here. It'll make a 1 tick pulse. This line, we're going to get all our inputs and we're going to negate them. Because remember, this thing will add its inputs together to its current output. So if we tell it to add to its input the negative of what it's outputting, it will just get rid of everything that it's got stored up. Because anything adding to its negative is 0. So that gets us our negatives of our inputs. So this is what we should add to this arithmetic combinator to get rid of its current memory. Now we only want to add it for 1 tick, which is what our pulse generator is for. So for this, now we still need to have our own signal to tell it to clear, and we're actually already using up a red signal. So we'll just set this to blue. Yep. So Yep, and I'm actually going to make sure my pulse generator only sends through the blue signal. So when we set this to have a signal of blue and we turn it on, it's going to generate a 1 tick pulse of the blue signal out of here, which is going to be fed into here. And I'll just put down, oh, there we go. I'll put down this here just so you can see. So you can see when it's getting an input signal of the blue being greater than 0, it's also outputting what it gets in. Now that's got a slight issue because that's going to add a blue signal to it. So if we go with just that, and we connect that up, turn that off, and we'll generate our pulse, you'll see that it's cleared everything, but now this has a blue signal of 1. Where'd that blue signal of 1 come from? Well, this thing outputted a blue signal of 1. It went into this, and this just passed everything straight through. So now one of the easy ways to reset one of these manually is just to change it to a multiply and then a plus, and that'll just get rid of all the signals. So let's give it a bunch of signals again. Just, something random. There we go. Okay. So to get rid of this, what we're going to do is we'll also connect our output from this decider combinator up into this arithmetic combinator. And this one will be set up to multiply our blue signal by -1. It could also just have everything like this one is. In fact, that's a bit more versatile if it is. Now, its input is only connected to this one's output. In fact, let's set this to not equal to 0. Ooh, no, that'll tick twice. Yeah, greater works fine. Yeah. So, when this sends out a signal of 1, on the next tick, this is going to send out a value of blue is -1, because it'll get the blue 1 signal on its input, so it'll output blue -1. And this thing will output all its inputs, which will include the blue is 1 signal from here. So this time when we tick it on, you notice that there's no signals on this arithmetic combinator. I'll just clean up all that stuff now. So they're the two ways you can make memory cells, and this is what I find to be the easier way. Just because you can just use one signal to clear it. So there's our memory cell. Now what we're going to want is we're going to want a way to only write to our memory cell under certain conditions. And that main condition is that this is the memory cell with the ID that we want to write to. Now, one way to do that is the same way that we do this state machine. We simply check, is this memory cell 0? Then we'll let everything through to write to it. Is this memory cell 1? We'll let everything through to write to it, and so on and so forth. So we're going to name our memory cells. How will we index these? We're going to index it with the signal A. So if A0, output everything. Connect that on the red line. And we'll just connect that on the red line. And these would have an A is, we'll set negative. Actually, that won't even store because there's no such thing as -0. I'll keep it as A is 0. And the next one would have A is 1, A is 2, A is 3, and so on and so forth. So, something like that. Should really move this thing just up here so they're not quite as far away. But there we go. Then what we can do, we can have a shared green line between all of these decider combinators. I will want pulse generator probably going to want this permanently, so I'll just set it down there. Come on, guys. There we go. And we'll connect that up. And so, actually, and I'll set up a second one, and the second one will be for resetting. So I'll set that one up there. That's okay, I'll just make a bunch more of them. Okay, cool. So let's send a signal, and actually we need to set up all these. A is -1, A is -2, and A is -3. Okay, that's them all set up. So let's say we want to write into A is 2. Make sure this is off. A is 2, and we want to write the signals 0 is 1, 1 is 2, and 2 is 4. So we tick this on. And if we look, A0 is still not set to anything, A is 1 is still not set to anything, but A is 2 is set to 0 is 1, 1 is 2, and 2 is 4. And A is 3 is not set to anything. Now this is a fairly nice system we have going on here. Yeah, ooh, no, that won't work. Gotta think of a way to pipe our reset signal into here, because we can't pipe it on the red line because these all share a red line, and we can't pipe it on the green line because these are all connected on the green line. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to, there we go, connect these on the green, and then because they're not using a red line anymore, we can connect that onto the red line. Now if I send a red signal of 1, that'll reset all of our memory cells. Good, that works. Okay, now, while this is a very nice sort of setup, I actually don't like using constant combinators here. And the main reason for that is, say I wanted to make another 4, and then another 4, another 4. I would need to reset what all these constant combinators are manually. You know, if you're dealing with, let's say we have 100, and I just want to make another 100 just to lay it out and not have to worry about it for a while. You know, that means then I have to go in and manually change 100 constant combinators. So let's think of a different way to do this. And the easier way to do this is to think just what are these doing? These are just outputting sequential negative numbers. So -0, -1, -2, -3. So instead of using them, we can just use arithmetic combinators. We don't actually need the first one, but from the first one onwards, there we go, A, 1. Each time we just take one away from A, we can use a decider combinator right at the start, just sending out A0. And we can just connect the output of each one to the input of the next. Now normally a setup like this you'd need to worry about tick delays, because every single combinator takes 1 tick to pass it through, as I showed down here in yesterday's episode. And so you need to think about that. But our input's never changing because our input's connected to this constant combinator. And so because it never changes, our output never changes. Now that's also useful because I think in 0.15, I'm not sure how the code worked before then exactly, but I know in 0.15, combinators won't update their output if their input hasn't changed. So these combinators aren't actually getting computed. I mean, in the code it goes in, checks if the input's changed, it hasn't, so it just skips them, is how it works. Which means that there's no extra processing really that goes on using these combinators here instead of just using constant combinators. So that's actually a pretty good design to go with. And that way, when we want to add, you know, another few rows. You can just do it like that. And the reason I overlaid it there is so that this green cable from here to here, see how obviously these don't have a green connection to anywhere. So if I just lay these down here, in fact I'll just lay them down right now, pick them up anyway. Put that one down. Okay, you'll see that all of these are connected to the same green line. But when it connects these two, you'll see that there's no green line connecting these two together. And there's no red line connecting these two together. And there's no red line connecting these two together. An easy way to fix that if you've already put them down is to just put down your blueprint over the ones that already exist. I can't remember if you have to hit shift or not. No, you don't. You don't even need to use shift. Just click on it and it will add the circuit wires to it. Also a useful tip is that circuit wires that are part of a blueprint are always free. So if you're early on and you're in Marathon and you don't want to make a bunch of these and you're doing, you know, stuff that uses a lot of circuit wires, it can be useful just to make blueprints, even if you don't have construction robots, just so you can copy, you know, a single circuit condition. Like say we had only these two wired up and the rest were just placed down on the ground, but with no actual circuit conditions, no circuit wire set up. I could just blueprint the bottom two and then just click and do that, and it would set up all these circuit wires for free. That's a useful tip. There we go, so we've got now up to A is 9, but I don't really think I need all the way up to A is 9. So I'll just clear a few of these for the moment. Now this is good, but we've got no way to read from our memory cells yet. So we need to add that in. So to add that in, similar to writing, what we'll do is we will connect, we'll connect on the green line, the output, there to there. So we'll connect our output that tells us what number this memory cell is to this decider combinator. And on the red line, we'll connect, there we go. We'll connect that output. Does that work exactly as I want it? Let's see. We need an extra line to send up our shared line. Now I know this is possible because I've done this before, I just need to remember how you set this up exactly. So if we put this on the green line, then it would be getting this output, which is bad, because then this would be also passing into the decider combinator's input. Okay, let's see. We need your output, we need your value, and we need the third value, which will be which cell we want to use. Could do it with another combinator. That would start getting slightly messy. It's the only way I can think of doing it at the moment. Think about this because I'm not super happy with this way. What we'll do instead is a setup like this. This will at least work, and then we can think about optimizations later. we can have our red line connecting. Cool. And do that. So what we have here is we have the A signal coming from our line of arithmetic combinators over here. It connects to this arithmetic combinator line over here, which will just add it and whichever cell we want to read from. So we'll just connect that up to this constant combinator and say we want to read from cell number 1. So that'll send it a signal of 1. Now that means that our 1 cell, which is this line, it will have a value of 0 for its A signal. That'll go into this decider combinator, which is also reading from this, which is our memory cell, and that'll output its input. So actually let's write something into cell 1. Oh, there we go. So into cell 1 we'll just write these values. So you see them there, and you can see that they're getting outputted. So as I was saying before, to save on circuit wires, you can do that, and we'll actually also do that, just like that. Got all the wires connected, and now 1, 2, 3, and you can see that all of these are now wired up, and that actually cost me no wires to do. Do remember that if your combinators are already on the ground, it won't actually copy the settings for it from the blueprint. But there we go. Now if we connect our electric pole here, you can see this is reading from our 1 cell. Now, our reads don't require a pulse generator, because we're not actually writing anything, we're just reading from this output. That's all we're doing. So they don't require a pulse generator, so that's nice. And that is our memory cell done. And that actually took us half an hour. So we'll quickly go through how our timer is going to work to talk to all of these. But we've got our first memory cell done. So how our timer and our counter thing is going to work. So let's build that over here. So we know that our A signal is which line of our memory bank we're going to use. So we'll just use that signal again to also signify which crafting bank we're using. So A signal is which crafting bank. So we're going to set this up like a timer, except unlike a timer, this thing is not going to have a constant number as its second parameter. And the reason for that is we want this to be able to dynamically deal with us adding on more crafting banks. And so instead we're going to use B as a signal to tell us how many crafting banks we have. So we'll just set this up like a normal timer for the moment. There we go. And we have no crafting banks, so it's actually not going to output anything. Now for this system to work, we have to put a few restrictions in to how our whole system's going to work. A few requirements, actually, that would be a better term. The first requirement is that on a signal where we send out, hey, we want the info for crafting bank A is 0, on that same tick, we want to get back from crafting bank 0 what it has. Now that makes it slightly more complex because if you remember, all combinators have a 1 tick delay. So that means crafting bank A is 0 can't just look for A is 0 and go, okay, it's time for me to send out what my current status is. It needs to think, hey, on the next tick, is it going to be asking for A is 0? And if it is, I should get ready to send it on the next tick. And so the next tick, when it says, hey, A is 0, what are you doing? A0 on that tick is saying, oh, here's what I'm doing. But that's fine. to do. You just need to think, hey, on the next tick, are we going to be at A0? Are we going to be at A1? Are we going to be at A2? Instead of saying, hey, on this tick, are we at A0, A1, A2? The other requirement we're going to have is that every crafting bay that we have must always output at least one signal when we're asking what its status is. Doesn't matter what signal it is, it just needs to have at least a signal. So we could very well just have each crafting bank, you know, send out, here are some signals for smart trains. So, you know, we could just make them all send out, you know, this train at station is 1. Just as a dummy signal to say, oh yeah, I'm alive and I exist. The reason for that is, what we can do is we can say, okay, we know about 5 banks. So let's check bank 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we know about, and let's check bank 6 as well. And if we get a signal back from bank 6 saying, oh yeah, you know, my station train at station is 1, that means our system can now know, oh, there needs to be a crafting bay at bank 6. Otherwise we would have got no signal. So in fact, while we thought they were only up to number 5, there's now up to number 6, so we should check 6 as well. And keep 6's data. And then let's check if there's any at 7, and any at 8, and any at 9, and so on, and so forth. So we're going to have this arithmetic combinator. Actually, I'll put it right next to it. It's going to be set similar to a memory cell, but no reset for this one. And actually, I'm going to restrict this one to only string B. And so it will store how many stations we know exist, how many crafting banks we know exist. So we know that 0 of them exist. Actually, no, I'm going to move it down 1. And the reason for moving it down 1 is I then want to add, I think I'll add 5. So we'll search, yeah, not connected to your output. Cool, that works. So this one's telling us how many banks we know exist. We know 0 of them exist. And this one's going to tell us how many we will search ahead. So while we only know 0 exist, we'll search ahead 5 banks. And the reason why we want to search ahead a few more than just 1 bank is that it might take us a while for us to do our circuitry to check, does this bank exist? Maybe that takes 2 or 3 ticks. And so bank 6 exists, and we know bank 6 exists, so we want to increase this one by 1. And that means that by the time we get up to this decider combinator, by the time that's propagated through, this combinator still thinks we need to check all banks. And so if we add, say, 20 banks on all of a sudden, so we've got 0 to 5, and we now have 0 to 25, it'll check 6, say 6 exists, and so it'll add 1, and then it'll be checking maybe bank 8, and then it'll be like, oh, so bank 6 is this, so I need to check up to 11. And so that'll just keep counting up until it gets 25. 25 will exist. This one will be checking maybe bank 28 at that point in time. And it'll just be all done in one single run. Instead of, if we were just checking up to bank 6, it would go, okay, bank 6 is this, but I'm done because I've checked all the banks now that I was told to check. And then the next time it'll go, okay, bank 6 exists, does bank 7 exist? Oh, it does. Okay, well, but I'm done. But I now know that for next time. This just means that it can do it all in one cycle. So we'll add your output to your input, and yeah, thought I'd stuffed up, but that's exactly what I should have expected to see. Okay, we'll just turn you off so that you're not constantly flickering. What I'm going to do let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm going to set up some fake stations. So we'll have maybe 3 fake stations. It's not the way I would have wanted to. There we go. That's how I would have wanted it. Yeah, okay, this is a slightly easier way to set it up. So we'll set up a signal on station 1, station 2, and station 3. And they're all set up correctly. And here's our output. So there we go, we have our input signal that's telling us which station we want to read from, and we have our output signals telling us what's in that station. Yeah. Now these aren't actually sending out any other signals. So even if this was running, and let's actually connect this over here, we don't know that any of these stations exist. But say we made 3 send out, you know, this signal. You can see it kind of flickering really quick there. But this way we at least know there's a station that exists, and we would even know what number it is. So now, if A is less than B. Okay, cool. That's easy enough then. Over here I'm going to put up the circuit that will control adding to B. So what we're going to do, we'll get you from there, and we'll get you from the green line there, and we'll say if A is greater than or equal to B. So that means we're looking at a station that we don't know if it exists yet. If we're doing that, output a single value of B. Yep, that works. The signal value of B, I want to read the signal. Let me think. So we want to read if this is outputting and we've got a signal on this line. That's a 1 tick delay there. So we actually need to have a 1 tick delay on our red line from here. Okay, so they're now synced. So what I want to check is if B is greater than 0, output everything. Yep. Okay, cool. So we'll connect them up. So if B is greater than 0, we'll just output everything, yeah. Yeah, because B is 0, so it's always going to be greater than 0. And we got rid of this signal. Cool, we'll add that up. And we'll put it on this one. Cool. So we're occasionally getting a signal of B and a signal of something that isn't B. So what we'll do is we'll remove that B signal because we don't want it. B times -1. Output B is -1. Yep. We'll connect these 2 lines together. And then using medium electric policy, you see that we're now only getting 1 signal, which is good. And the last thing we want to do is add one last decider combinator. If we've got anything on this, add a single B. So this will output B as 1 whenever we're getting a signal from a station that's greater than how many stations we know exist. So we can add that to our input. And duret B is 3. I was only expecting this to be at B as 1. Now you're at B is 4. Okay, let's see. you're a 1 tick delay, you're a 1 tick delay, which means that this red line should be on the same tick. But you're also a 1 tick delay. So yeah, let's connect that directly. We'll disconnect that, connect it back. Okay, so we're getting slightly better. So this is now storing the last station we know plus 1. It's equal. Oh yeah, because we've got an equal check here. Now do we want it just to be greater than, or do we want it to be equal? I think just greater than would be what we want then. Oh, should get rid of that. Yeah, cool. There we go. That works perfectly now. So this is, we know there's a station 1. That's the top station that we know. So we're going to check up to station 6. So it's going to check up to station 6. If we give station 2 a signal, that means that A will be greater than B on station 2. So it'll output a B of 1. That will go into this one, which B will be greater than 0, so it'll output everything that this station is giving us. So this is a station that we don't know about, so we actually care what it's telling us. This will get rid of the B signal because we don't want it polluting it. If this wasn't there, then every single station would be that we were checking would be considered a station. In fact, I can even show that. There we go. You should notice this thing basically constantly ticking up. In fact, it should be ticking up more than that. 5 must not be a long enough delay. Let's go 10 instead. There we go. I'll figure out exactly how long the delay has to be. But this is acting as if every station number has a signal. And you can see how it's not actually looping around because it's got enough time to add one before it runs out. But we're only getting that because we're not negating our B signal. So we'll fix that up. There we go. This checks, are we getting any signals? So we're only getting signals if we're getting a value from here and we're checking a station we don't know exists yet. And if that's the case, well, we've got a station at a signal that we didn't know about yet. So we're adding one. And so that's how this part of the circuit works. That's really all we need for this. We do need another controller that will control this timer, so that really it controls this constant combinator. So that when this part of the circuit, this state isn't active, this decider combinator isn't adding up and adding, isn't getting an A signal into it. And it should actually be reset to a value. So that's one of the main changes we're going to need to do. And the other one will be that we'll need to actually start with this A signal not being 0, but being a negative number. And the reason why we want it to be a negative number is because if you remember, each of our crafting locations needs to know if it's about to be. If on the next tick it's going to be the A value that it needs to respond to. Makes me think I might need to slightly change this setup if that's the case, because this is assuming there's a 1 tick delay. But it's easy enough to make a 1 tick delay. You just put down our arithmetic combinator set to h plus 0, add 0, output h. But yeah, so they're the two main components of our first state of this brain. We've got our memory cell, and we've got our bank selector, which is able to notice when extra banks are added on and dynamically adjust itself so that it's ready to read from more banks. I actually noticed I wired this up backwards to how I want it to be wired over there. I want this output to be on the grain line, going into these banks. And then the last thing would be to just add, essentially, as it is at the moment, I can do it this way. So we need our 1 tick delay. And we will just wire this over to here somewhere. So wire that there. Wire that there. And let's see. Red and green. We want the A value from the green, and we want all the info from the red. So let's pass through our A value. We'll just do this to finish off this episode. And we'll pass through everything on our red, and the green line is one we want to send it to. Now this would kind of work. The only issue with this is that we have no way to reset it, but that's okay. Turn this on. Turn it off again. We should have... Ooh, we're getting B values. Where's our B coming from? Ooh. No. That's bad. You only care about B. Okay, cool. So we can disconnect that. There we go. That's even nicer now. So, because the output of this was added to this line, this was getting tainted with the B signal. So now, good. Only the ones I expect to see flashing are. So there we go. Our 0 bank has got nothing because we don't have a 0 bank. Yeah, because this is a 1 bank. Our 1 bank, it's 11, or it's at least got an A signal, no signal, no signal, no signal. Yeah. So the only issue now is that, you know, normally we'd go on to state 2, state 3, and then state 4 would be the state that we would reset this bank at. But of course, because we're not going through the states, we're not going through resetting it. And so that's why these have a value greater than 1, because they actually loop this thing around, you know, 11 times. But, you know, if we were getting some signals, let's get some different signals. There we go. Got that one. You can see they're over here. So our 0 signal for 1 and our Z signal for 2. And there you go, 0. Or is that Q? Yeah, that looks like Q. Yeah, it is. Okay, Q for 1, Z for 2. So that all works fine. Cool. And so in tomorrow's episode, we will connect this into our main part, and we'll probably look towards a setup for our second state of this main brain. Yeah, so this main brain is going to take us a while to build, but then again, it is a fairly complex circuit, and it is going to control our whole factory. And we're going to try to make it so that, you know, we build it once. State 2 will probably change a few times, but otherwise the other states will basically stay as they are once we've built them. So again, any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, this is Jack B1024 signing off. Have a good day.